Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be looking at the past simple tense. Last week we had the last video we looked at how to form the past simple tense, and today we're going to have a little recap and a little bit of a practice just to make sure that we understand how to format the past simple tense. Hi there, my name's Ed Anguish from Speak English with Ed, where we try to get you to understand everything that you need to know to be able to pass your CELT or one of the CELT English speaking exams if you're looking to come to the country for as part of a settlement visa. So the past simple tense practice, that's what we're going to be doing today. In the last video, and if you haven't seen that, I suggest that you watch that now, that you stop this video and you watch that one now and then come back to this one to have a practice, because in the last video we learned 4 rules that are needed to enable you to format the past tense. Now, the first rule that we did was that if a verb that you're trying to work into the past tense ends, the last letter is the letter E, then you just add a D to it, and then you've got it in the past tense. You add a D if the last letter of the root verb is E. Now, for the second rule, it's if the last 2 letters of the verb are consonants. If the last 2 letters of the verb are both consonants, then you add ed. Ed. 2 consonants, you add ed. Okay, so that's going great so far. But the third rule got a little bit more complicated, just a little bit more, because there's extra step in there. And the third rule is if the verb ends in a Y, then you must change that Y into an I and add ed. You've got an extra step in there. You've got to change the last letter, that last letter which is Y, into an I and then add ed. So that leaves one more rule, again a little bit more complicated because there is the extra step in there, and this is if the last 3 letters in the verb are a consonant, a vowel, and then it ends in a consonant. So this is the last 3 letters, a consonant, a vowel and a consonant. Then you double the last consonant, that means put another one of the same in there and then add ed. Right, they're the 3 rules. So with rule 1, if a verb ends in E, you just add an ed. So here we've got hate, which is a verb that conforms to this rule. It ends in E, so we need to add a D to it to make it into the past tense. Add a D and it becomes hated. Hated. So now hated is the past tense of hate. The same applies to live. Now live ends in an E. Live, to live, ends in an E. If you want to put it in the past tense, then you, according to this rule, because it ends in an E, you add a D. D added to that makes it into lived. Lived. So these 2 verbs, hate and live, in the past tense become hated and lived. Hated and lived. Right? So for the next rule, just to see how that one works, if this has got 2 consonants, for the last 2 letters we add ed. So this works out here. We've got start, the last 2 letters of the verb, as you can see here, are consonants, so this fits into this rule. So because they're consonants, we add ed. so we need to add ed, and then we end up with started, 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 the past tense of start. Start is the verb in its present tense, and started is the verb in its past tense, past simple tense. Very easy to do is that. Another one, this conforms to the same rule because the last two letters are consonants, S and H, so we need to add ed, and then we get finished, finished, finished. We've got started here and finished here. Now this started ends in a D sound. This finished ends in a T sound, a T, T, finished, finished, started, started. So we're not going to go into that now, but some of these past tenses end in a D sound and some end in a T sound. I'll point them out to you as we're going through this video, but a lot of them that you've got to remember. There are rules that you can apply so that you can understand which is which, but not for this lesson, not for this video, I'm afraid. So you need to remember which one's a T sound and which one's a D sound. But we're going to go through that in this video anyway. Right, rule number 3 talks about verbs that end in a Y. Y. And then you've got to change that Y. So this gets a little bit complicated. You change the Y into an I and then add ed. So let's see how that works. You get study, ends in a Y, it changes to an I, and it ends in ed. So therefore you get studied. You changed the Y into an I and into an I here, and then you added ed, studied. Okay, did you understand that? We'll have a look at it once more. This is marry, M-A-R-R-Y. Change the Y into an I and then add ed. It's not all that complicated once you understand it. You can understand it quite quickly. So that's rule 3. And rule 4 is for verbs that end where the last 3 letters are a consonant, a vowel, and then another consonant. And when that happens, you double the last letter, so you add another last consonant and then add ed. So we'll have a look at that one. We've got travel here. Okay, it ends in an L, you add another one to double it, so you've got double L and then ed. Let's have a look at another one. Stop, OP, vowel, consonant, add another consonant and then add ed to the end of it. So you've got stop, S-T-O-P, vowel and consonant, and then you add another consonant and then you add ed. So you've got two consonants, 2 last consonants, and then add ed, and that's how you do it. So let's have a little look and see how it can go. See if you can guess which ones we put in here. So the first one is I live, the verb live, to live, I live, or whatever. How do you put that into a past tense? I'll give you a couple of seconds. Okay, here we go. We used the first rule, which was the rule applied to a verb having E at the end. We add a D, and it's lived. And as I was saying earlier on, this has got a D sound. Lived, lived, not lift, not lived, lived, lived. Okay? So the next one is smile. I smile. So what's the past tense of I smile? To a couple of seconds. It's I smiled. You've got the E at the end here, so we add a D. And again, smiled, it ends in a D sound, not a T sound, it's a D sound, smiled. I examine, it's got an E again at the end, so examine. We add the D to get examined, I examined. So, and again, it's a D sound. All these so far have had D sounds. And the last one that we've got here is I erase. Erase means to rub out. When you make a mistake and you're writing and you rub it out, you erase it, or you can erase all sorts of things. But that is a use of the word erase. So erase ends in an E, so we must add a D to make it I erased. I erased, and again it's got a D sound, a D ending. Okay, so let's have a look at another set now. We've got I collect. What is the past tense of I collect? Well, have a look at the last two letters here. What have we got? It's a consonant. This is a consonant. So what was the rule when you've got two consonants? You add ed. Collected, collected. So it's collect, add ed, collected. Right. Next, I walk. So walk again here has got two consonants. LK, two consonants. So we use the same rule. We add ed and we get I walked. This time I walked ends in a T sound. A walked, walked. The first one collected, collected. But this is I walked, I walked. Ends in a T sound. And talk, now talk, I talk. The same rule applies, obviously, because we've got two consonants here. So it's going to be, what is it? I talked, I talked. And it's got the same T sound as walk, because it's the same. The first letter is different, but the last one's the same. So I talked, I walked, I collected. And the last one on this page is I paint. Now I paint like an artist. I paint landscape pictures. I don't paint, I'm hopeless at painting, but the verb would be I paint. So what's the rule here? Paint. Well, we've still got two consonants. We've still got N and a T, two consonants. So we add ED. We add ED and it comes into painted, painted. So we've got different endings, the same letters end ed. They're all the words end ed, but they're slightly different sounds, and this is something that you've just got to get used to learning. As I say, there are rules for it, but that's for another video, not in here. So I collected, I walked, I talked, I painted, painted. So collected, walked, talked and painted. Right? So what's next? I carry. So what is the past tense of carry? I carry. Look at the last letter. The last letter here is a Y. What was the rule if you've got a Y? Can you remember? Can you remember what to do? I'm sure you can, because you've got to change the Y into an I and then add ed. So that's going to look like this. Carried, carried, carry. Change the Y here, this Y, into I and then add ed, and you've got carried, carried. And the same applies to fry. Fry, it's only a 3-letter word, but the same rule applies. It ends in a Y, so you change the Y into an I and add ed. You change the Y into I and you add ed. So you've got fried. This next one, copy, copy. So we still end with a Y, and the rule still applies. You change the Y into an I and add ed. So you've got copied, copied. Slightly different sound, but it's copied. It's a D sound. Fried, carried, copied, copy. Change the Y into an I and add ed. Now we've got a longer word here. This is a longer word. It's a 3-syllable word because you've got multiply, which is multiply, multiply. But the word still ends with a Y. So the rule applies. The same rule applies. So what is the past tense of multiply? Can you say it before we see it? It's multiplied, multiplied. So I carry, I carried. I fry, I fried. I copy, I copied. I multiply, I multiplied. So there you go with those. One more to go. Let's see what happens here. This is the rule that has a consonant, a vowel, and then a consonant. So what do we do here? We've got the last 3 letters, a consonant, a vowel, and a consonant. Can you tell me what the past tense verb is of I travel? Well, according to the rule, it said we've got to add another L and then add ed, and that turns it into travelled. I travelled. I travelled around the world on my leap year, or whatever it was. So next one, stop, stop. Again, last 3 letters, consonant, vowel, and consonant. So we change, as we've done here, we add the last letter again and put two of them, and then add ed. So we've got stopped, stopped. But this has got a T sound, not a D sound. This is a T sound, stopped, where that is travelled, travelled. This is stopped. This is I tap. I tap into my memory cells to recall whatever. I tap. I tap. So what? All these words. There's only 3 letters, and it comes in as tap, which is a consonant, and a vowel, and another consonant. So what is the past tense going to be here? What is it going to be? Well, we've got to apply the same rule. So we've got to add another P and then put ed. We've got to add another last consonant and then add ed. So that's going to be I tapped. I tapped. Now this one is dispel. So again, the last 3, look at the last 3 letters, consonant, vowel, consonant. So we need to put another L here because it's the last consonant. We've got to double it. So we need to put another L and then ed. Dispelled, dispelled. So I travel, I travelled. I stop, I stopped. I tap, I tapped. I dispel, I dispelled. Here we're going to put these into sentences now. What you've just learned, we're going to put them into sentences. So we've got the verb to bake, to bake. So how are we going to put this into a sentence in the past tense? How are we going to change the verb bake, to bake, into the past tense? Okay, you got it? Do you know what? It's baked. So we can put it in a sentence like, you baked a cake. I baked a cake. I baked a pudding. It's baked, ed ending, and it ends with a T sound. Baked, baked. Okay? So next one, to apply. Now again, look at the last letters. Look at these last three letters. Now the ending letter is a Y. We've got a rule for a letter, a verb that ends in a letter Y. Can you remember? Can you do it? It's, you change the Y into an I and then add ed. So we changed the Y into an I and we added ed. I applied for a job. He applied for a job. She applied to go on a training course. Its past tense of apply is applied, and it's a D ending. It's a D ending sound. Now, to end. To end. Have a look at the verb, see what it is. The last two ending, the last two letters are both consonants. So what's the rule for a consonant? For two consonants, we add ed. So it all ended happily. It all ended happily. Ended, ed. Two consonants, so we add an ed. Now this one, compel, compel. What's the pattern here? Well, the pattern is that we've got the last three letters. We've got a consonant, we've got a vowel, and we've got another consonant. So we've got consonant, vowel, consonant. Rule 4. This is rule 4. So what we need to do here is, what do we need to do? How is this going to look? What is this going to be? To compel. So you want the past tense of compel. Well, we're going to add another L, and then we're going to add ed at the end. So it's going to be compelled. She compelled him to go. She compelled him to go. He couldn't resist. He couldn't refuse. She compelled him to go. That is the past tense of compel. So to bake is baked, baked. To apply is applied, applied. To end is ended, ended. To compel, compelled, compelled. The rules, listen, you've got to understand the rules, and it's dead simple. So that's a little revision for you. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd like you to give it a thumbs up. I hope you've got a lot of benefit from these videos that we're doing, because if you watch them, they'll all help you get through your English speaking, CELT English speaking exams when you go for them. So make sure that you watch these videos over and over again. You need to watch them really a few times to be able to get it inside your mind, so that you can apply these rules without thinking. You just see, oh, it ends in an E, I'll add a D, or it ends in a Y, it's IED at the end. So you just change things to suit the rules, and the more you watch the videos, the more you'll understand the rules. So as I say, I hope that you've really enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. All you got to do is hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to make sure that you get notified when we release new videos, because YouTube will let you know when there's a new one coming out. So until the next time, I'll say cheerio for now. Have a great time and practice, practice, practice. Bye.